Welcome, everybody. This is the Relate Podcast. We're back at it with version 2 or part 2 of relationships. Just to recap of what we talked about during the last session is we were talking about our relationship with God and how it's important, and all of the backing up that we needed to do with Scripture and just basic stories and personal experiences and whatnot. But we're back again, and we're going to talk about our relationships with other people. And so without further ado, we'll kind of get into it. It's pretty cool. But again, this podcast or this Biblecast is here to bring the word in a relatable way through real conversation. So we're not trying to church it up. We're not trying to fluff it up or
right.
But just have real conversations about our previous experience, what we've learned over the years, and hopefully it'll be relevant for you. And we're excited about it.
Cool. Can't wait for us to start. And we got new equipment, guys.
Yes, new equipment.
So we'll see how it is, if it helps things and increase or add to the quality of what we're trying to do.
Yep.
Cool. You lead the way, my brother.
All right. So one of the important things that we kind of talked about in our last session was whenever I believe the disciples asked Jesus, or maybe it was the Pharisees that asked Jesus, what is the most important commandment?
Pharisees asked Jesus,
And
trying to trick him.
Yep, trying to entrap him in his words.
Yeah.
And he said that
this is on Holy Week, by the way.
This
is when he's at the temple, and I think this is right after he flipped the tables, or before he flipped the tables. They try to trap him.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. It's Holy Week now.
It's Holy Week now.
But it's kind of interesting that 2,000 some odd years ago.
Yeah,
it was going down.
Yeah.
So, but back to it. So Jesus was telling them that love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength is the first and most important commandment. And the second was love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
He says, based upon those two, all the law is fulfilled.
That's right. All the law is fulfilled. Everything hangs on it. Everybody says it a little bit differently, but yeah, those are the two most important: to love God and love people.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And so, as the second priority, first being God, we talked about our relationship with God last session. So we're going to talk about priority 2, which is to love each other. And it's important to kind of go through it as to how do we do that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that come to mind is Jesus gave us an example of how to love one another through his personal ministry, and just the way that he was with each and every one of us, or each and every one of them back in the day. We get to experience it through the word, but they got to experience it in their life.
Yeah. And and we just finished the Gospel of John in our men's group that we do our reading every morning, and we read the Gospel of John, and I believe it's chapter 13, where Jesus displays for like the millionth time servitude by washing other disciples' feet.
Yeah.
And of course, remember Peter's like, no, you can't wash my feet. Like, I'm supposed to wash your feet. And then Jesus is like, no, you're not getting it.
Give me the whole bath.
Like, he said, well, that's what it is. He threatened him. He's like, if I do not wash your feet, then you're not part of me. Like, you're not with me. And then Peter's like, okay, well, then wash. Give me everything. He's like, wash it all. Wash it all, So, always overzealous as Peter.
Yes.
So, but Jesus says the famous lines like, I came to serve and not to be served. Mm-hmm. And that's really, in a nutshell, that chapter and that scene where Jesus is washing disciples' feet is what it means to love people. It's selfless servitude.
Yeah. It's interesting because he says it so simply.
Yeah.
And yet we overcomplicate it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, okay, well, love your neighbor as yourself. All right. Well, okay. So if your neighbor wanted to borrow something, well, if you needed to borrow something, would you want to be able to borrow it?
Absolutely.
Or if, it's like, oh, well, would you want somebody to like park in front of your driveway and not let you into your own driveway? You know, it's stuff like that on a regular basis that a lot of times we choose ourselves over other people, you know, and then that's what causes problems.
Yeah. To me, the way I would put it, is to me, the term that I like to repeat in my head is consider this. Like, I don't think we stop sometimes and consider the other person.
Right.
You know, like you said, like you used the example of borrowing. If you would want to ask to borrow this because if you were in need for something, then you're like, oh, well, Eric has this, so I'm going to ask him to borrow it. And I would expect and hope that he would say yes because I have a need and I know he has it and this will help me with my need. So if you then come back around and be like, hey, Alex, let me borrow this, and I have something that you don't have, you're like, I don't know if I can let you borrow it. Like, why did you not consider, like, if the shoe was on the other foot, like, what would you expect? You know, like our brother who's not here with us here tonight, shout out to Peter, you know, he wasn't feeling good. He was feeling dizzy. So I asked him, hey, I'm in Vieira already. I can come up and pick you up and take you home because if I'm not feeling good and I'm feeling dizzy and I'm not sure if I could be effectively drive back home, it would be nice if somebody would offer to take me home. So it's just about being that consideration, removing yourself out of it. Really thinking about that other person's need, and that's where we struggle. This is why we struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So within our loving each other, so there's different priorities even within the second priority, right?
Right.
So we have, if for all of our unmarried folks, your family is your priority within. After God, right?
Right.
So, and then, you know, after that comes friends, after that comes, you know, just acquaintances, you know, work relationships, things like that.
Yeah.
So, but if you're married, well, then your spouse becomes number one. So, and it's very important that we maintain balance within our priorities.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, especially if you want to, you know, have a marriage.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think you took the course already because, you just graduated in the leadership class.
Correct.
That was last night's lesson, was balance.
Ah, yes.
Well, Lindsay did a great job presenting about balance, you know, and basically what she ended up saying, the summary of it is she doesn't believe there's any such thing as balance. You know, we go through certain season and we have to prioritize. You know, it is really hard to find balance sometimes because a lot of times you do have to sacrifice something for another.
Yes.
You know, so being considerate or being selfless, most of the time you have to sacrifice your needs, your own personal wants, you know, and desires. So, and it's really an unwillingness on us to sacrifice those things where we struggle with the whole idea because we make excuses. I don't know about you, but when I don't want to do something, I make excuses.
Yeah, I'm pretty good about putting up a good case on why I don't need to do something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you know, let's just look at the logic of this.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just logic my way out of it.
Absolutely. We could always logic ourselves. Well, you know, I'm really tired. I woke up this morning at 5, you know. Yeah, man. Like, yeah, I've been driving all day. You know, like, you know what? I think I need an oil change anyway because that's what my thing comes out. So I don't want to take it. Yeah. You know, like I start creating all these different scenarios. Why, you know, Amy needs me for something. I think she said that she might need me for something. So let me not.
So it was interesting. I was watching, you know, just ADHD, right?
Right.
And it was something explaining, you know, just the different struggles, you know, with ADHD. He was talking about how it was just kind of a funny skit. And he was saying, it's like, oh well. We can't do anything today because we have an appointment at 5. He said, well, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like, yeah, but we're in the preparation phase of going into. We gotta be ready. You know, we gotta have our mind right. We gotta be ready, and we can't be dealing with anything.
Right.
You know, it's gonna jeopardize this appointment at 5 o'clock. And just shaking his head.
That's crazy. So it's 8 a.m. Your appointment's at 5. So that means you need 9 hours to get ready. I need that.
So obviously it's an over-exaggeration.
Yeah. But no, I could really see that.
Yeah, so it happens, especially with folks that struggle with that, and your mind just can't do it because if I'm going to do this, then I got to go do that, and then I'm going to need parts, and then I got to run to the store, and then by the time you've stressed yourself out to the point where you can't move.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh well, I'm just going to sit
there. Yeah, because you reason yourself out of just making a simple decision.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw something at you. This is for all of you throwing a big haymaker or curveball. So this was a struggle for me before, and I'm not saying I'm completely over it, but I do struggle much less in this area. How do we process loving someone when that person doesn't love us the same way in return?
It's a tough one.
So I'm going out of my way being considerate for you, Eric, and then you're like never considerate for me. Yeah. You know, and it's like time and time again. I'm like, okay, he's gonna do better this time. He's gonna say yes. He's gonna not think about himself, and then you continue to only think about yourself. And then we get to a point where we're like, you know what? I'm tired of doing for effort. Like, I'm tired of doing for this person because they never consider me. So why should I consider them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we fight that mindset?
Because
that's not Jesus.
Oh,
that's not what he taught us.
No, because he said he forgives 70 times 7.
That's right.
And even if your enemies slap you across,
turn the other
cheek.
Absolutely.
And I watched something on that, and I think they pitted it against him. Like, it was forbidden to
smack
somebody on the other side or something like that.
Okay.
He was doing it out of like rebellion, but I don't know that that's the method.
I've never read into that.
Yeah.
But again, people would reason themselves out of.
But yeah,
you know,
that just doesn't make sense. We don't do that.
We're not take that word literally because blah blah blah. No, but that's a real struggle. I think this is a real struggle that a lot of good people who are considerate find themselves in seasons or in moments in their life where they are very inconsiderate because of how they were treated.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, how do we overcome that?
So, and funny that you should bring that up is that a lot of times that people go through, well, it's that classic saying, hurt people.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And whenever people, go through seasons of hurt, or they've put their heart out there and smashed it in the ground, if you don't process that correctly and heal from that, well, then you carry that trauma with you in every other relationship that you come across.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing it as not what I can give, but what I can get.
Yeah.
So instead of you being a giver of love, you're now a receiver of love.
Yeah.
And then now there's an expectation.
Yeah.
So
talk about that expectation.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then you go around and you put your expectations on everybody. Well, they've got their own struggles that they're dealing with. You have no idea what other people are dealing with on the regular unless you live with them, right?
Right.
And even at that, you can live in the same house with somebody and you don't know they're in current struggle.
That's right. Because they have to communicate.
Right.
It's really the only way we can know what somebody is dealing with. If you come to me, you're like, hey, Alex, man, this is what I've been doing.
Right.
This is what's happening in my marriage. This is what's happening in my life. This is what's happening in my job. And then you go on from there. Like, if you don't say these things, I have no idea.
Absolutely. And
you could walk around with a smile on your face.
With our society.
Yeah.
So you got social media. It's like, you have to look the part.
But those are fake
news.
Exactly. Because people only show you the happy moments.
And honestly, even if they're not intentionally doing it, out of deception, but everybody's not going to just post their dirty laundry, out there on social media just because it's private matter, right?
Yeah.
But when you're looking at other people, all you see is the happy moments shared. And it's like, oh, these people always go on vacation. Well, they haven't been on vacation for 5 years. That was just one trip.
Right.
And it just keeps coming up. So they keep,
right.
keep posting it out, right?
Pictures from that one vacation.
That one vacation. And then you're looking at your life. It's like, oh man, my life sucks really bad because we never go on vacation. We don't do anything fun. And I'm fighting with this person. Kids are all crazy and acting hectic. And so then now, they're probably dealing with, something similar, maybe not the same,
right?
But you don't know that, and now you're at odds. Yeah. Well, then when you see that person, you've got some type of way against
absolutely
it,
right? Resentment. Well, that's what it's called. Resentment.
Yeah, it's like, Mr. I don't have any problems over here,
Mr. Crew,
I can't date with you.
Yeah.
So, but it's important to keep that in the back of your mind whenever you're dealing with people. Have any idea what they've been through? You don't have any idea what they're going through presently. And honestly, everybody goes through peaks and valleys. Yeah. So if you're not in the valley now, well, you might be in the valley later.
Yeah. And we don't want it for you.
Yeah.
But it's just life.
Yeah.
Life has ups and downs, hills and valleys.
And, Jesus said, I've not come to take that away. So bones will still break.
Absolutely.
People will still have problems.
Absolutely. Like we have to suffer. That's why I love James so much. First chapter, verse 2. It says that we must endure. That it's through endurance. That's how we are refined. This is how we get strength. So this is why Jesus says, I love it when he tells Judas, when Mary, takes the perfume and she pours it in his foot, washes his foot, uses her hair as a towel to dries it. And this dude, that was a whole year's rage. And then he's like, the poor will always be with you. And I know this is a little bit off context, but to me, I think it's a good reminder that suffering is always going to be around. So it's like, and this goes to us as Christians too. We always want to control everything. Mm-hmm. And when we can't control something or change something or affect something, it just wrecks us.
Yes.
Because, and this is where our faith just jumps out the window. Mm-hmm. Because again, now we're trying to do things by our own strength and never relying on the Holy Spirit or never relying on Jesus and the finished work on the cross. Mm-hmm. We become so me-centered in everything that we do.
Yes.
It might start off good, but then slowly but surely it becomes about you. Mm-hmm. Even in servitude and everything.
You really do have to be careful, because whenever you're so you start to do something for the right reasons, and then you start looking at yourself a little bit more higher than you probably should.
Yeah.
Because I'm serving.
Yeah.
So these people aren't serving and I'm serving and I'm doing more than they are. Well, why aren't they serving? Yeah. That's not the point.
That's not
that's the point at all.
Yeah.
So serving is not it is for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? But it's more for you.
Yeah.
Or just as much for you as it is for everybody else, because you get so much out of it.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of growth that comes from, servitude and going through hardships. Yeah. And so, there was I don't remember the pastor's name, but he gave a sermon or a talk, and he was talking about, there was an experiment done, I believe, over seas, over Europe somewhere. I don't know if it's like Switzerland or anyway, it was over there. So they had this biodome type setup.
Okay.
Where you're testing, I think it was for experiment to terraform or to try and grow things on the moon.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So
they're creating an environment and trying to see what can live and die.
So they had this big dome, and they were able to grow everything, and they were going through all these experiments. They had a really big problem with the trees. The trees would grow real tall, but they would float. Mm-hmm. And they didn't understand why. It's like, why the trees seem to grow real good, but they just kept falling over. Well, as they got digging into it, they noticed that the root systems within the trees were not spreading out. And they were trying to figure out why. It's why aren't and what they found out and what they deduced is that over time, whenever trees grow in nature, they have the winds and the weather that comes against them, which helps them develop strong roots. Mm-hmm. So as it faces resistance, as it faces those elements, throughout the years, then the roots grow and it gives it a stable base.
Right.
And so that stuck with me because it really made sense, because as we go through hardships,
Yeah.
through our lives, you might not understand. Go through this.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do this at all? It's like, why can't it just be easy?
Yeah.
Well, God's growing your roots.
Firm foundation.
Yeah. And so typically whenever we go through something, it's so that we can help other people go through it as well.
Yeah.
So
because whenever you get a GPS, you always get there easier. Versus in you making a bunch of wrong turns and then you finally get to your destination.
Yes.
So you could be that GPS for someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be like, hey, turn left. Yeah, don't make that turn.
Yeah.
You're going to get stuck.
And unfortunately, sometimes people have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just have to learn. Back to our topic, relationships.
This is on time.
But yeah. So, from your spouse being the first and foremost priority after God.
Yeah.
So it kind of works, and you guys can't see my screen, but I'll throw it up in the when we're done with this. But it's the triangle. It has Jesus at the top.
Yeah.
And it has both spouse on either side.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that the diagram kind of gets explained is that as you get closer, each of you, to Jesus, you get closer together.
That's right.
And it takes both of you to have a pursuit to Jesus in order for you guys to be close and for it to work. And So, Kimmy and I, whenever we first got married, we went to a marriage conference at DL.
Okay. And
so it was for XO. Jimmy Evans was doing some teachings, and one of the so profound teachings. I would recommend it for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So he has so much material.
Yeah, even if you're not married and you think about getting married one of these days, digging into that resource is...
Even if you got a girlfriend and it's serious, dig into that resource.
But he talks about the 4 laws of love.
Yeah.
And his story, you can check it out. But him and his wife had a rocky start. They were having some issues, and they almost divorced. And so then, he prayed to God, and the Holy Spirit revealed that in Genesis 2, I believe.
Okay.
22-24.
I can pull it up if you...
Yeah. It's Genesis 2.
Here for reasons, not just to show. Genesis 2.
24. I think it's around 24.
Okay.
Anyway, it talks about how for this reason a man shall leave his father and his...
I'll read it for you.
Yep, go ahead.
Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, but not ashamed.
Yeah. So he was reading this, and he came out with, God just put it on his heart to read this, and he's like, I don't understand this. What does this mean?
Yeah.
But for us to leave our father and mother, first of all, he explains how Adam and Eve didn't have a mother, so this was for everybody. This was this is the building blocks of relationship when marriage was created.
Right.
So whenever you come into covenant with your spouse, then you are a new family.
Right.
So then that covenant is thicker than blood.
Yeah.
So because it's spirit.
Yeah.
And it's 2 spirits molten together, so the 2 will become one.
Yes.
So then whenever you come into contact with anything that challenges that priority, well, then your marriage relationship starts to suffer.
Yeah.
So if you are finding out that you both are arguing a lot, or if something doesn't seem like your intimacy is wrong, so go check. So have you been putting your spouse first?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Have you been meeting your spouse's needs?
Great questions.
And so it's important that we treat that as a priority. And there's 3 other laws, and I think it was the law of priority, law of pursuit, law of... What's the other one?
I did it a long time ago. I don't remember all of them by heart. But one thing I'll tell everybody is being engaged in your marriage and relationship requires a lot of effort. And what I mean effort is like when we're dating somebody, we're pursuing them hard. What does that mean? That means like I just met you. I'm smitten. I think I'm in love. I'm trying to get to know you. I'm trying to know everything about you. Your likes, your dislikes, your favorite color, your favorite food, your turn-ons, your turn-offs, all of that stuff. And then after a while in marriage, that pursuit stops because you get into like this cruise control. And even though you're present, but you're really not present. Because especially what I've learned through marriage conferences, Amy and I, we've been to at least five marriage conferences over the years. And we read books, and Jimmy Evans is definitely one of our. We watch his DVD. We have all that stuff at the house. We have like a 4 DVD set of his teachings and stuff. And one thing you learn is you have to pursue your wife. Yes. And I'm just speaking to all the guys who may be watching. You have to pursue your wife. Like, you have to date her. You have to tell her she's beautiful. You have to tell her, she's sexy. Like, you have to act like it's the first week that you guys are together. Mm-hmm. And so if she's talking, guess what? You can't have the game on and then just half listen, hear half things. Like, you have to listen to the whole thing. Like, it can't be like, oh, you're boring me now. Like, let's talk later. Mm-hmm. So that's how a lot of times people fall out of love is because the intentionality just goes down the wayside, or the quality of it goes down.
Yep. And, a lot of times, over time, if you have instances where you have not put your spouse first, then those times can develop resentment, and there can be intimacy blocks and, things of that nature. So it's important, to kind of do a check.
Yeah.
So check with your spouse. Say, hey, listen, am I pursuing you? Am I meeting your needs? Am I speaking your love language? So, and at first, I'll be honest, it kind of drives me nuts. Because one of the things that's funny is that typically, so like within the marriage relationship, it is a healing relationship, whether you know it or not. So God puts people together that are somewhat opposite. And so there's varying levels of opposite, but it's a healing relationship. So your strengths and weaknesses are contrary to your spouse's strengths and weaknesses in some ways.
Most ways, yeah.
Yep. So then you go on this journey of, okay, so you can either choose to reject those weaknesses and differences.
Yeah.
You can accept them, or you can celebrate them.
Yeah.
So happy marriages is when couples can get to a point where they're celebrating each other's differences.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Kimmy and I really kind of differ on is, like, I struggle with procrastination because of issues that I have.
Yeah.
She's really, really good at organizing and planning. So we've got the calendar on the wall. We've got we've got phones synced up. Yeah. She gets super passionate about making sure that everything's got a time. Yeah. We're being super productive. We're getting things done, and we're checking things off the list.
Yeah.
Me personally,
just get up and
so
go with the flow.
And I'm more go with the flow. Yeah. And so then I really struggle with being like I would say I guess the head of the house in that particular area where I'm managing that, primarily because by the time I thought about it, she's already thought about it and reminded me about it twice. So it's hard for me to to get there, and so that's one of the struggles that we particularly have. But sometimes my logic and my slowness to get going is of a benefit because we think about things a little bit more clearly. Yeah. She doesn't like to be slowed down. She wants to get it done. So she speeds me up, I slow her down, and then we're balanced in that area. So we can either choose to celebrate it.
Yeah.
So I think we're at a point where we accept it most days.
Right.
But sometimes it's an annoyance, and then it gets rejected. So at any given point in time, you can be anywhere on that spectrum.
Yeah, that's true.
So
it sounds like it could become impulsive sometimes and not think it through.
Right.
Because of the need of accomplishment or to accomplish something.
Yep. And it probably also depends on the importance of the subject matter as well.
Yeah. So one thing I could tell you guys, on staying on this topic, is when your spouse criticizes you, like really fight the urge to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. Because like kind of like you said, you said that God puts you together in order to really address, those weaknesses. I think that's the word you use.
Yeah.
And those faults. So like, I'll give you a perfect example. So I'm going to let you inside my life. So we just finished Lent last Sunday. Lent is the 40 days leading up to Easter. So Amy and I, we decided, hey, let's do this Lent devotional, this 40-day devotional. And it also includes fasting Sunday. And then I was like, I don't know what to fast. Should I fast food? Should I fast this? What should I fast? And then my wife took that opportunity to criticize me. And she said that, you should fast your video game because you're always playing your video game every chance that you get. Like, I know you work a lot and you do a lot and and she just wasn't trying to just belittle me. She complimented me at the same time as she was rebuking me. She was like, because I do a lot of the cooking because I enjoy it. That's all. I mean, she does all the laundry. So there's a lot of give and take in our relationship. But she's like, you do a lot. I recognize that. But then any spare time you have, you will play video games instead of us just watching something together or just laying and talking and stuff like that. And I could have been like, but,
right.
That's usually my default setting. And most guys are that way. We're gonna defend ourselves. But then, thank you, Holy Spirit, in wisdom. I was like, I listened, and I was like, you know what? I'll fast video game. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll fast video game. I'm like, I do enjoy it a lot, and it is a stress reliever for me. And I could be making better decision of spending that time with you instead of playing that. So I was like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think she was shocked because I didn't defend myself.
Yeah.
And periodically as the 40 days went by, like maybe every 2 weeks, she's like, you really miss it, don't you? So I'm like, I'll be honest, I do think about it sometimes, but I made a commitment, and you know me, I'm a commitment guy, and I always stick to my commitment, so it's not a problem at all. Well, fast forward to this past Sunday, Lent was over, and then Monday came by, I didn't touch the video game. Tuesday came by, didn't touch the video game. Last night, Wednesday night, usually we go to prayer, we did the class, we're done by 8:00.
Right.
We get home by 8:30, 8:45, and then she's like doing Ava's hair, and then she's like, "You're gonna get that video game on?" I'm like, I'm actually not. I'm like, we're gonna watch something together. And she was like, oh.
Yeah.
She was like, okay. Now that doesn't mean I've given up video game forever.
Yeah.
But I do recognize what she was trying to tell me. And sometimes if we're just not defensive when people are bringing correction into your life, especially somebody who loves you, like they're really not trying to hurt your feelings.
Right.
And if you would just stop and receive instead of defend it, then you can grow. And talk about those roots, that root gets deeper and wider.
Right.
Where now you have self-control over a weakness in your life that you were struggling before. And this is why I love when the scripture says, like, I'm going to give you help. It says, that God tells Adam, I'm going to give you help. And I really believe we are each other's helper. Like, you're Kimmy's helper and Kimmy's your helper.
Right.
And Amy's my helper and I'm her helper. Because I'm pretty sure you help her identify and running into something and now she's learning, being married to you, like, all right, let me slow down for a second. Let me think about this and different options and different scenarios.
Yep. So, and she helps me with quite a bit, a lot of the things.
My wife too.
She keeps me on track.
I'm spoiled now, bro. I tell Amy, we're about to celebrate 16 years in August, and I'm like, yeah, like, thank you. And we'll see. We like to watch shows like Ready or Not, where people get together and they try to find love. And, and then she'll be like, how would you feel? This is wives, guys. They'll post questions like, how would you feel if you were back in the dating scene? I'm like, no, thank you.
No.
I don't care how good you look. I don't care none of that stuff. You could have the prettiest eyes, the whatever. Like, I'm good.
Because it's a lot of work to get, to a point where you're comfortable.
Oh yeah.
So, both Kimmy and I were previously married, and so coming out of that, I mean, it was very difficult, but
right.
But in that season, now there was a season, let's say 5 years of singleness that I was in.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I was super picky about who I was going to let in my life.
Right.
And so I would meet people and we would talk, and there'd be a little, dating here and there.
Yeah.
But it's like if we couldn't hang out and have a good solid conversation without there being issues or anything like that for like 15 minutes, then I didn't see a whole lot of hope for it going any further. But and of course, Kenny and I joked that whenever we got together, based upon our both of our histories, there has to be a background check, and we'll be filling that thing out triplicate. So we had talked for a good solid 3 months before we actually went, on a physical date.
Gotcha.
And
so a lot of phone conversations.
So there was a lot of back and forth correspondence, and really got a chance to get to know each other before we even saw each other. We met on Christian Mingle.
Oh, okay, that's Christian Mingle.
Cool. And
so this is like, I know we're getting on topic, so I'm gonna say one thing and then we'll get back outside. But like I heard, it was a pastor, I can't remember which pastor, but he did a sermon. He was just challenging young people, not just young people, all people, like, date with the intention of getting married. Don't date just to date.
Is that my phone?
Maybe it was Michael Todd. Maybe it was somebody else. I can't remember. I mean, I love Michael Todd. I got his books. We talked to his books, but I can't remember if it was him. I have a feeling it was somebody else that I'm picking up. But he probably said it too, and and I think anybody with wisdom will say the same thing. Like you should date. See, the thing is, the world has literally spoon fed us this idea, and we ate it up for so long, and we believe in it. It kind of has become part of our DNA that we have to date a lot, and we have to have a good time and do this and do that in order, basically test all these different options. Like it's a buffet, or an appetizer way to give you a little bit of everything before you make the decision, and it's not what God ever intended. Like that conversation that you and Kimmy had is so important, those connections. Like, I really believe now that I'm older and I have been married for a long time, like, I love my wife more and more every year because our conversation has increased over the 16 years. Mm-hmm. Like the depth of our conversation has increased over the 16 years.
Yeah.
So, like, we talk about really, really, at least I can only speak for my marriage, we talk about some really, really good stuff. And I fall in love with her more because I know I could have these conversations. And it's just, it flows. There's compassion there. There's understanding. There's patience. All of these great things, versus shallow conversation. And there's a time and place for shallow conversation. Mm-hmm. But if that's all you talk about is shallow stuff, like what do you like and what's your favorite movie, what's your favorite, I mean, those are good stuff, but they, So to me, that's where I come from. I'm like, no, thank you.
Right.
Has zero interest in the dating scene because I don't want to start over.
I don't have the energy for the patience. So we talked about spouses, about marriage, as first priority on the category of second priority.
Yeah.
Right. So then next, we'll talk about family.
Yeah.
So we're called to honor our father and mother.
Yeah.
And we also need to be there for our family to help them be, one of the biggest, what did somebody say? One of our biggest like ministries, as like parents, is your kids.
Yeah.
So making sure that your kids are brought up in, with God and His teachings, and making sure that they're brought up in the ways of the Lord.
Yeah.
And so, what's your take on, how God wants to make sure that we're taking care of it?
Wow. So I think it's a great question for me because my oldest is a freshman in high school. My middle one is in 7th grade in middle school. And Ava, my youngest, she's in 5th grade. So I got a kid elementary, middle, and high school. And the way the kids are succeeding, not only academically, but they're all A's and B's. They're doing really great. Adriano just got a letter yesterday. He's getting big award next week for having, I think his GPA is like 3 point something. AJ's also GPA is 3 point something. Mm-hmm. So Ava got an award 2 weeks ago. Her GPA was like 3.5, 3.6. So the kids are really doing academically, but more importantly, like they are so kind. Like my kids are super duper duper kind, and I know I know it's because the way we've raised them in the mm-hmm. We have not only a lot of times people who grew up in church and grew up in church family and doing church stuff, they hear a lot of preaching, they hear a lot of things being told to them, but unfortunately they don't see it being modeled for them. Yes. So Amy and I were very, very, very conscious about modeling everything we're telling the kids not to do. So if I'm going to tell my kids you shouldn't curse and use profanity, a bad word, then I can't go around dropping F-bombs and SHIT words. Yes. Like I can't speak like that because they're going to be like, wait a second, Dad, I thought you said like this was a bad word. And to take it even further, not only should I not be using that language because I'm telling them not to use that language, but I can't go around and watch and listen to those languages too. Because sometimes as parents, we're adults now, we're like, well, I could watch a rated R movie and it's fine. And the kids come in and they see you watching, a movie and there's all these F-bombs and you're laughing. Yeah. Or you listening to a Jay-Z record or some other rap record that has a lot of profanity and demeaning language about women. And you're like, oh, that's dope. And you're dancing to it and bopping to it. And then so the kids now, they're confused because you told them not to do this, right? But they're watching you celebrate. Mm-hmm. They're watching you have fun with it. They're watching you enjoy it. So Amy and I, over the years, we're from Brooklyn, so we were exposed to all of this type of living. This was normal for us. So we had to reprogram ourselves in what we watch, and we're not saying we never watch a rated R movie, PG-13, but we definitely never watch it with our kids. Mm-hmm. Ever. I don't listen to anything or watch anything suggestive or anything like that because I want to be consistent that the things that are coming out of my mouth matches my actions. Right. So if I'm saying to be kind to somebody, then I have to demonstrate kindness. If I'm saying to be patient, I have to be patient with them. And sometimes as parents, we're not very patient with our kids because we haven't had high expectation. Yep. Because I know I said it all the time, you should know better. Well, you got to be patient. So, and trust me, family, everybody who's listening, I did not get this year 1. I did not get this year 2 or year 3 or year 4. It took me a while. Yeah. But God has matured me over time. And I see now, and I started off by telling you their grades and where they are, because now that AJ's 14 going on 15, Mariano's 12 going on 13, Ava's 10 going on 11, I've seen now that my growth, I could see their growth. Mm-hmm. And then I see them becoming well-adjusted, really good human beings. Yeah. Really good. And we everywhere we go, the kids are so and I'm never big on compliments. I always feel uncomfortable when people compliment me. So it's a little bit uncomfortable to hear it, but I'm super proud. I'm super duper proud. Right. Because I'm like, Jesus, God, it's really working. It's like, you do an experiment, you watch it, like, it's really, really working. So,
didn't think it was going to work.
Especially AJ, man. I mean, I could go on so much about it, but I'm going to just stop. But AJ, especially my oldest one, bro, when I tell you, he is a very strongly convicted young man. Like, you cannot persuade him to do anything negative that goes outside of the parameters of his values. Like, he is an unshakable object. And I pray to God that he never changes.
Yeah, that's such an important. I mean, to have that, as a quality, especially. So, I was a pretty strong-willed. I'm strong-willed. But sorry, Mom. But I was very, very difficult kid.
Yeah.
And but she had read this book, and she would be always telling me, she's like, well, you were almost an only child. But she had got this book, and it was like was training up a strong-willed child or something to that effect.
Gotcha.
But the importance is to try and direct.
Yeah.
So direct them in the way that they should go.
Yeah.
Just like the Bible says. And so then it doesn't become a hindrance, but it becomes a strength.
Yeah.
So many of the qualities that we have, God gave them to us. We have them for a reason.
Absolutely.
So
that's
now
good.
we can choose to use them for good.
Yeah.
Or we can choose to use them for evil, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the free will that God gives us to do, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to recognize that with our children as well, and even brothers and sisters, and our extended family, is that they have a purpose, and they might not know. They might not know what it is. They might be struggling to find it, and it is our duty as their family to help them any way that we can, either to be there as a listening ear, or to be there in a supportive way, or even in a corrective way. Through loving, right?
Yeah.
To guide them in the way that helps them to find, their God-given purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's beautiful you said that, because it's so true, because, again, it goes back to what we said earlier about control. We try to control everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, control and directing are really not the same thing. And if we would identify the strengths of our kid that we might deem as faults,
right?
And really just, like you said, you're strong will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that strong will could really help. That means you have strong convictions, and your strong convictions could help you be a really good CEO.
Yep.
Like you're a manager in your profession, so you know how to stay on task. That has a lot to do with your strong devotion,
right?
Because you won't waver. Because it got to get done.
Yep.
So it's you're absolutely right. And man, those are all stuff that I'm still learning, and God is teaching me, and those are great things, man. And whoever's parents who's listening, who's watching, like, if you have children, really pay attention to their strengths, and don't look at it as something you need to change.
And I say all this, I struggle with it daily. So it's one of the classic things. My middle child, we work with him. It's the whole lean over your plate thing, right?
Oh, when he's eating.
But here's the thing: is that to him, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, until you're able to cross that barrier of, hey, it's important to do this because of this, and this, and then it clicks, because otherwise it's very distracting.
Yeah.
And so,
I got one too.
He gets it honest, right? And me over there thinking, like, I have literally said the same thing every single day, at every single time that we sat down at the table.
Yeah.
That this boy needs to lean over his plate.
Yeah.
Because he's got food falling down all over his face.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, well, how do I reach you without screaming at your face?
Yeah.
Because I'm frustrated at this point, because it's like,
I can see it already.
How many?
I can feel it.
How many years are we going to go through this, right?
Yeah.
But so, we work with them and say, yeah, well, listen, I will give you a reminder. Just in case you forgot.
Yeah.
We need to clean up your plate. Make sure that you're centered over your plate.
Yeah.
But then if you make a mess because you're not leaning over your plate, you're in charge of cleaning.
Yeah.
So you're a big boy now.
Yeah.
You're capable of running a little vacuum cleaner. You had to wipe up some stuff. So then it's going to become important to you.
Yeah.
To lean over your plate because you're going to get tired of cleaning up messes.
Yeah.
And that's the way that. Now every once in a while, I just get frustrated because I just think that should have got it a bit further. And I lose my temper.
Hey man, I think it might just be boys, man, because AJ is literally he's gonna be 15. High school, about to be finishing his freshman, gonna be a sophomore. I literally, just like you've been telling him every single day of his life. I'm pretty sure every single day.
Yeah.
Eat slower.
Right.
Eat slower. Please eat slower.
Mm-hmm.
You're not chewing your food properly.
Yeah.
Something so simple. 14 years.
Yeah.
He still doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, bro, you'll give him a plate of food, he'll be done in like 30 seconds. Like, he eats that fast. And I'm like, did you even chew? Like, did you taste it? Yeah. And because of that, he's developed, tough eating habits. Because that's the thing, you could ask any nutritionist or expert. If you eat fast, your brain doesn't process the amount of food that you ate.
Mm-hmm.
So you want more because you're only going by taste.
Right.
So I'm like, this is why you need seconds all the time. This is why you want more all the time.
Because your stomach hasn't told your brain that, hey, we're done. Don't send any more down.
So I know it.
But yeah. So it's one of those joys, right?
Joys of being a parent.
But my grandpa, he's a real wise man. He says, well, they're all the same at 18.
Yeah.
He says, if they're still wet in bed at 18 years old, well, then you can worry about it. But by the time they get to 18-year-old, a lot of this stuff gets sorted out.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. 4 more years, right?
Yeah, 4 more years. We'll see. That's not looking good for me.
Yeah. So to progress through this, so that we don't have to have part 3, the 2 other priorities that we have listed here is our friendships.
Yeah.
And then our priority 4 is our acquaintances.
Yeah.
People that we meet, here or there.
It could be the same thing, really. Friendships. Because there's different levels of friendships.
Yeah, different levels of friendship.
Yeah.
But you have work relationships, and
that's true.
Or you're just who they are, but
right,
like strangers, right?
Right.
But it's important to be able to handle those type of relationships in a biblical way, so that we can be successful.
Yeah.
So, and each and every relationship that we foster takes work, takes intentionality.
Yeah.
And it also takes selflessness.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about, if you're selfish in your ways with your relationships, then, it creates this,
yeah.
You're not going to have any friends.
Yeah. What you put out is, unfortunately, is probably going to what you get back, because you're not watering those plants, and big thing out of all the list of what you just said is communication. Yes. Like, if you really want your friendship or your acquaintances to blossom and to grow or to bloom, you have to communicate. Mm-hmm. Like, it can't just be a hire by situation.
Right.
It can't be, I see you at work and then that's it. Well, or in our case, because, we're church friends, mm-hmm. We have we done stuff outside church?
We'll watch a couple movies.
Okay, watch a couple movies.
Chosen and...
So our depth of friendship is still surface level, because we haven't done dinners together. We haven't gone, take the kids to the park together.
Yep.
We haven't, and that's where things really blossom, is when you start doing those communication times.
Right.
Those outside of the environment that you know each other.
Mm-hmm. Stretching yourself.
Yeah. Like, I have to take Eric and Alex outside of the church setting. We do the dinners, Kingdom Trap, which is why those dinners are so important. We get to learn each other. But that's a big group. We haven't had much one-on-one stuff.
Yep.
So it's everything you said, intentionality and all that stuff. The communication is so big, and especially communication outside the environment that you guys know each other. Super duper.
Yep. Yeah. And, from an acquaintance standpoint or stranger standpoint, just doing right by, everyone.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Treating people with love, kindness, fruits of the spirits.
Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
Right. And
exactly.
It's like,
don't leave them on the
somebody,
ground.
you see somebody all in need and stuff like that. Of course, in today's age, there's a lot of fear that comes from, being in certain situations.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's at night and it's, you're a woman or if you have kids with you or, stopping for strangers is a very dangerous thing to do these days.
That's why wisdom is the most important.
Yeah. And so definitely,
Yeah. Well, perfect.
Take that into consideration.
So, perfect example, Amy, about a week or two ago, somebody came and knocked on her window. She's at a red light, came and knocked on her window. The person, she said behind her or something, was driving a very creepy van. Mm-hmm. And basically told her that her tires look a little bald. She didn't roll her window all the way down. She just cracked a little bit because it was weird.
Yeah.
And then she was like, if she needed tires, that he actually had tires. If she wanted to pull over, that he could. She could buy from him.
Okay.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some random dudes knock on your window at the red light trying to sell you tires.
Yeah.
Red flag, ladies.
Yeah.
Red flag. Especially if you're driving a van. Red flag. So yeah. But she said that she don't even know why she rolled her window down because normally she wouldn't just ignored him.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until after she said no, thank you, I'm fine. She left, and she close to the home, she's like reflecting on the whole thing that went by.
Scenario,
and she's like, that was dangerous. Like even rolling down my window, that was dangerous. And thank God she had enough wisdom and discernment not to roll it all the way down because who knows what he could have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, ladies, don't even roll down. Somebody knocking at your window at a red light, you don't even roll down the window. You look straight ahead, and if that light turns green, you drive off and you make sure that person's not following you.
Yeah. If you see somebody in need, call the authorities, call an ambulance for them, or
everybody gets cell phones.
Yeah, everybody's got cell phones. There's people that are trained to do that, and people will get help.
Yeah. And if you got to meet, I feel like this is going to be like a, but if you got to meet anybody, even myself, and I'm a man, but if I sell stuff on the Facebook Marketplace, I only do public meetings.
Yep.
People always want to come over to your house. Now, there is certain items you're selling, like I sold a big 12-foot table, a whole dining room table. Mm-hmm. That one, the person had to come in because it was huge. But almost 99.9% of anything I sell, I meet at people at Walmart or Publix. And I try to do it during the day if I could help it. Where it's bright and as people could see, because you just never know what's in people's heart.
That's right.
That's right. So be careful. So it's the enemy, man.
The enemy. But greater is he that is in me than is in the world.
That's right. Greater is in he that is in me than is in. Amen.
So that's our time for today.
Cool. Had fun today, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did a pretty decent job.
Not bad. We went about an hour.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Just a couple things here to take away. Two are better than one.
Yes.
Because they have good reward for their toil. This is Ecclesiastes.
I always mix that.
4:9-12. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has no other to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep one warm?
Yeah.
Or how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken.
That's right.
So, and that's
that verse.
Yes, that's good.
Love
The
this verse.
threefold chord refers to
God being the
God being the third chord, right?
Yes.
So where two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst of them.
Philippians.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the ones that is always good for the men's conference coming up.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.
Proverbs
27,
Yeah.
17. Just we are meant to do life together.
Absolutely.
And we are meant to do life with God.
Absolutely.
So that's been our topic.
Yeah.
Relationships, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
Hope you guys got something out of it.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If you did, leave comments.
Please.
And
feedback is good.
We'll see you next time.
Even if we suck, let us know.
Yes. And you can come join us.
That's right.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next time.
See you later.